last thing, see me for tickets for Iron in the Hat, and if you pre-ordered your t-shirts, you can see me. They're $20 a piece. Next meeting, I may have a...
So I'm gonna, Clay's a huge influence on me, and I'm really grateful I found him. I found him because there was a young guy in Michigan, his name is Derek Bliss, and he was at a blacksmith event I was at. He'd already been exposed to clay, and he had a flower. It wasn't like this. It was a flat flower, but he introduced me to this flower style, and so I call it the Bliss flower. And he had one of Clay's tables there as well, and I asked, where'd you learn how to do that? And he told me Clay, and Bob had got me where I could meet Clay, and we got into some classes with him. So my first demo, I just want to demonstrate how I do my flower. I call it a Bliss flower, but it's actually, I copied what Derek did, and then I just started adding my own little stuff to it. I enjoy making these. I attach them to everything. I just, one thing I enjoy about blacksmithing is just swinging the hammer and the rhythm and moving the material, and it's just enjoyable to me. And they talk about hammer control, and that the farriers have such great hammer control, and I think this is a great exercise for practicing hammer control and dialing in what your hammer control is and how to change it. So we start off with just I got a little storyboard here in my little box. You're welcome to take photographs of it and write out. But we're going to start with just a square piece of steel. You can preheat here if you want it. And the first thing I'm going to do is bring it out of the fire. And I have these. It doesn't matter how big these happen to be. It doesn't matter. The thing that I think is important about the size that you choose is this is 1/4 inch, and I've tried doing it with thinner pieces of material, but the first thing I'm going to do is come out on top of this anvil devil. It's a real common tool for farriers, and I brought a whole bunch with me so that if you're interested, I'd be willing to sell one to you. But you don't have to have an anvil devil. You could use a hot cut in your hardy hole. If you have a nice sharp corner of your anvil, it's an anvil devil. All I'm doing is using it as a fuller to fuller in on all 4 sides so that I've got a notch on all 4 sides.
That's the triangular shape piece.
Yeah.
I got one, that's why I asked.
Yep. So that'll be the first thing. And what I do, what I was saying about the thickness of it is if it's too thin, when I come out and come here to notch and fuller in on the bottom side, if it's too thin, it wants to fold in half, and I call it topple, so that's why I like to use 1/4 inch, something that's a little bit more rigid. And so I'll do opposing sides. I'll do one side, flip it over, do the other side, one side, do the other side. And when I'm doing it at home, I'll just line up like 3 pieces in my propane forge and just go at a production style. So then the second step is to smash. We're going to get it hot and smash it.
Smash it. Full send.
Full send. So I like to use the round side of my hammer, which is a fuller, and depending on the way my hammer blows go, I can spread this out and create width or length, whatever I want, all 4 sides. Then I'm going to take a hot cut or a chisel. We call it a fuller. This is just my horseshoeing. We're all farriers, that's what we primarily do. But it's just a curved line. You can do it with a straight line too. The thing I like about curved line is it draws your eye. It just creates more motion. But like my belt buckle is done with straight lines. And it looks all right too. So either way. And then the next step would be to put a vein into the center, or 3, thinking about the odd numbers. And then I sink it into a little bowl shape, and I just have a drop that I found in a machine shop garbage pile. So anything. This is a nice little swedge, portable swedge. Could be a block of wood. You could roll a piece of round stock into a circle. It doesn't matter. All I need is a supporting rim. I was in a veterinarian clinic and trying to show how to do this one time, and there was absolutely nothing. There was no round stock to even make a little donut or anything. I just need a place where material will sink. So I used the Hardy hole, and it just left me a little score line on the back. Not a big deal. And then the last thing is to create the S curve that's sexy, right? So I'll show you how I do that. That's the smart hand, your tong hand dropping the material, and then shine it up. I like to drill holes. Like I've got a bunch of drill presses, but we can punch it today. So, are we ready?
Whenever you feel.
Okay. Now I told you what I'm going to tell you. Now I'm going to show you, and then I'll show you how I modify it. Presses. So, and I'm just using my.
Mind if you pass this?
Yep. No. Go ahead. I use my hammer as something to rest my material on. I'm just using my eye to find equidistance. If I hit too far one side or too far the other side, it's really dramatic in the piece, and it shows me my hammer swing is not where I want it to be. And that's why I think this is sort of a fun project for just dialing in your hammer control. I normally just count, hit it the same. Of course, as it cools off, I might have to add in that extra blow. Oops.
Okay.
I'm going to take a little quick heat on it. That was probably too much.
Question on the tong placement. That's for the first one, you're going to get the tongs up high on a piece of steel where your hammer is in. Is that just something, or does it matter?
No, I mean, ideally my thought is make sure my tongs aren't up so high that I hit my tongs.
Yeah.
And then as you hammer it, your tongs slide a little bit. Because I'm really, like, tongs really just sort of balance your work.
I figured it was
not
to
grabbing
keep it a little bit more support to the top, to keep it from the mushrooms on top a little bit more.
I don't care whether it mushrooms or not, because I'm going to mutilate it in a whole other way here.
Gotcha.
So
A little more.
So about like tong position, thank you, Gooder. I want to make sure I'm using good forging posture, and I'm keeping all of my tongs, my hammer, everything in front of me where I'm comfortable. I'm not getting out, and if my elbows get out, things start to hurt, right? And I lose power as well. So basically I've got 4 notches on all 4 sides. Then I'm just going to take and throw a basketball at and smash it every which way I want it to go. I've heard people talk about how their hammer swing, and heard them say it should feel like you're pulling a rope, like if you were going to pull a rope out of a tree or something, and you just pull the handle down and then let the hammer do the work. So the way I think about when I'm swinging the hammer, and I'm sure these guys can add some more stuff to it, but everything should be loose. My handle should be loose, my tongs should be loose. If you got a death grip on stuff, it doesn't make you more effective. And I think about if I had a dowel through my handle and through my hand, that the hammer is just pivoting on that dowel, and the hammer does all the work. Obviously, the higher I lift it, the farther it can fall, the more impact it can have. But I also try and stay, the farther away from your anvil you are, the more power you'll have as well. For me, this anvil's too tall. When I swing my arm and I come in full open angles at everything, this is where I want my material, not up here. This is shortening my swing, my stroke.
Did great.
No, we're good. I'm going to go to the cold one first. Because if I go to the hot one next, the cold one will be too cold for me to forge it. Should I be showing this to the camera? Is that the camera or this one?
I think both of them are. Kind of overall or what?
Yeah, man, the whole thing. At home, I've got a treadle hammer, and I do this under the treadle hammer. There's no reason you can't do it alone. The problem is I've thinned all the pedals, and the center is thicker, so I gotta be careful. I tend to want to spin on it. No biggie. What? Yeah, if you want to strike, I can have get a wrap. Thank you. So I'm going to use the side that had been down to the anvil as my top. When I run my puller, it's just 1/4 or less of the width of my blade, creating overlapping blows with it. Now I've just isolated each individual pedal and put a puller vein for the center. So then the next step is to sink it in your bowl. And if I was going to punch it, I would just go ahead and probably use my stud punch. We put studs in horseshoes, so this is just a round punch on a handle that we use for putting studs into horseshoes. But I would use it to sink and then just drive the punch right to the bottom of the bowl and create my slug. When I'm going to drill them, which is how I usually do it at home, I just use my center punch so that I've already got a center hole or mark to drill.
Okay. I need to create.
So some of I built lots and lots and lots of these. And that whole thing of odd numbers was kind of bugging me that I was only doing 4. And I should have 5 pedals to make it more attractive to the eye. And so I started, and I had done this, where I'd taken a square and then forged it, so the corners off of it, and I was playing with that. How do I get 5? How do I get the odd number? So I figured you just have to start with a round disc. And so I would make my fuller marks off of the anvil bevel first, visualizing like 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock, and then it was really easy to separate those 2 in half, and then it made it easy to separate the other into 3. You can mark it out, but I just do it by eyeball. And the same thing, the only drawback was that sometimes I felt like I needed to cool off the side that I was hitting with the hammer, and then I didn't like how that slowed me down, so I thought, just hit it. You're going to hit it again anyway. So now I don't cool it off. I just let it mash, because I'm going to come back and move that material back out into a pedal anyways. Yep.
On the cover.
Yeah. Just visualizing the cup underneath, trying to get the center. Resting my tool against my hammer so I can get steady where I want to be. So be careful not to sink it so far that if I'm going to attach it to something, I can't get back at my rivet head is all. And then this is the S-curve thing. It's the smart hand here. The hammer is only just holding the material on the anvil, and my left hand dropping is what's bending the material. basically, I mean, you can just play with that as many different ways as you want. And that's the other thing I like about blacksmithing is it's just a constant opportunity to, what if I did this? What if I did that? What if I did this? And you end up discovering all this stuff. And so there's a box full of different pieces that, of course, well, what if I did it, these are some of the round ones. And then I was working out of my horseshoeing truck, and I didn't have any stock, so I had old farrier rasps in the truck. So I started cutting them up and making flowers out of the rasp. And then what if you just sunk something into it instead of a vein, a different shape? So there's a whole box full of different ones in here. The dogwood flower, same thing, only just put the extra notch in the corner. So you're welcome to dig around and look at some of these other ones I've tried. Okay, so then the other part I wanted to show you, and the reason I chose a quatrefoil for this demonstration is, what's that? Yeah, well, I want to mark it first.
No, I mean, where's our... It's gone. We're just working on it.
You don't have it.
Oh, well, there you go.
You don't need another demo, Jen.
So anyways, like, these guys, I was trying to do something that they hadn't seen before, and when I called, I think I was talking to Hooter, and Dalton said, oh yeah, quatrefoils, we know what quatrefoils are. I was like, darn it, you know, what am I going to show them? I wanted to show these guys something they hadn't seen, and I asked him, and he goes, what's a quatrefoil? So that made me feel a whole lot better. A quatrefoil is four, quatre means four, and a foil is the arc that comes around, and then where the two arcs intersect here is called the cusp. And this was something that I thought Francis Whitaker had done an awful lot of. And I know that Clay worked with Francis an awful lot. And so I was going to get ready to do this demonstration in Colorado, and I was struggling. I'd never seen anyone do it before. And Travis was my little, I'd take pictures and I'd send them to him on the phone, whatever, and he helped me sort out some of the issues I was having. So as I go through this, I want to talk about what my problems were, and so that you can learn from my mistakes as well. So the first thing, if you're going to make a quatrefoil for a specific space, you have to figure out the length of material that you need for that. And so you basically measure the perimeter of a side, or not the perimeter, the length of a side across. So from here to here, you measure that distance that you're trying to fill, and then multiply it by 4.5 in order to get the length of material you need to do this. And so I'm doing it the opposite way. I just am starting with 40 inches of, this is 3/8 square stock, and I've got a black Sharpie line here, and I'm going to use my anvil bevel as a mark. And so the first line and the last line over here is 1/2 and 1/2 of the quatrefoil, and then there's 3 full quatrefoils in between. So that when I come all the way back around and I weld it, I'm welding it in the center of the foil. And then quite often that's going to be covered up with the collar or whatever if it's a bit of a bigger piece. Yeah, and it can change an awful lot depending on if you have more arc, it takes more material than if you have less arc. And then depending on, you know, I could make this entire piece smaller if each one of these was smaller and these cusps would move closer to the center. I'd use up more of the steel and could make it smaller. Or if I need to make it bigger, push those guys out, and it's going to change. Okay, so I just have a straight line across there, and we'll start on the end.
Need that one that we passed around, we need that one back.
Why?
Well, I got it out to the bottom.
Oh,
You can look at it.
oh, it don't matter.
Right down there, Miss May, that's the one you just made.
Yeah, it don't matter.
That's one that you gave me.
Yeah, yeah. Just keep it. I don't know if I'm
That on my
supposed to
back.
do Well, that's right.
Something like that, you're okay.
It was up to him, he would.
it. I gave the backup piece away, so that's what I was telling
That's
you.
okay.
That one, that over there is all out of the box.
So he's gonna heat up right where my mark is, and the first thing I'm gonna do is just fold that back on itself. In Francis's, or it's George Dixon's book of Francis's work, he marks it on the inside. I don't know that it matters, I like it on the outside so I can see it all the while and make sure I'm folding it in the right place instead of hiding my mark where I can't see it anymore. So the first one, when it's short, it's not too hard to fold. You can fold it and you lock it in the vise, fold it over the edge of your anvil, stick it in your hardy hole and bend it, put it into turning forks and bend it. It doesn't matter. You're just going to double it back on itself. So I'm just going to fold it over the edge of the anvil. So I can see right now my mark is here, and if I continue to hit this way, I'll just pull my mark closer to me. So I'm going to flip it over this way and try and pull the material and get my mark closer to the center of my bend again. Now I'm just going to create a little forge weld there. It's okay if there's a little bit of space in there. That'll allow heat to get into the center of it. For my weld, as long as I've got it all protected with some flux. And it doesn't have to be a very big weld. This is only 3/8 material, so fold it in half. My cut should only be twice that.
Tell them what kind of flux you got?
This is called Iron Mountain. It's like magic flux. You don't, what is it? Russell Colvin Special. It's magic. Like, you hardly even have to know how to weld. Like, it almost. And we weld in propane. Like, my shop at home, I use a lot of propane. And then, you know, our shoeing business, we usually are working out of propane. And it's amazing how well it welds in propane, I think. And so one of the things about like welding is, for me, I like to weld 3 times. The first time I come out, I'm really just asking the material to stick together. The second time I come out, I'm asking it to actually weld. And then the third time is just sort of like a cleanup and try and hide out any seams and blemishes and whatnot. And somebody had told me, oh, well, Francis could do that whole thing in one. He'd fold it, he'd weld it.
That's right.
And he'd go to his, right? And
He did everything. Every forge well, every son did. He did it in one heat. All the way
And
to
so that was kind of bugging me, like, what am I missing that I
Well,
do
you're missing
3?
30 years that he had experience in.
That's a lot of it as well. But what I was starting to wonder about is, I was doing it in a propane forge, and maybe working in a coal forge or a coke forge, one forge weld is good, but in propane, I always felt better with a little more security. I guess so. So you want me to try it here in front of everybody?
No.
Make my piece for the wall of shame here?
This is not the time. This is not the time.
Okay, I'll just do 2. So that we
We got all day.
No pressure, Jennifer. This is going worldwide.
I know.
No pressure.
Yeah. Thank you.
How much of that end are you welding? That fold?
Not very much at all. I mean, I want that to be a little square. I want my cusp to be a little square, so I'm hardly welding at all. But what I found was, and this is where I was running into trouble trying to self-teach, is I was doing that, and then the next step is going to be to open up those two legs and create the arches that are here. And what my problem was is I was opening everything up. Like I was pulling my weld right back open, and I was really frustrated. And that's when Travis got the information I needed, was that I needed to protect that area. And by locking it into the turning forks where it doesn't bend beyond that. So that was key for me. And if I look at this, the ones where I can see a line going up into them, I think that's terrible. That's a failure. That's not what my goal was. I want each one of these to be a nice clean weld that you can't even see the line in it. And then when I do have lines in them and they don't look good or they're irregular shape, then I rivet a flower to them and hide the fact that it's up.
Ready? It's hot now.
Okay. So I think it's pretty good. I will go to the Smith & Magician now, and I'm looking past. I'm looking through the die and onto this side to see how much material is sticking out there. And then I'm just going to hit the corner just a wee tiny bit. And then I can come in here and with my other set of tongs. And now, like, if I'm going to keep continuing here, I would get out my chalk and I would trace my arc right on the jig so that, or the turning forks, so that each time I come out with the next one, I just open it up to my chalk lines and proceed. So now, you have to open them up relatively straight so that when you get to the point where you're here and you've got all of them forge welded and opened back up. If you get too much of an arc going on, you can't get into your Smith & Magician without interfering. And I use mine in my Hardy, but there's still, you have to watch that you don't have it getting your own way. So then once you forge weld all four of those, now it's just bringing the two edges back around to me. Get fast forward.
Ta-da!
Put that into the oven and bake at 350 for 45 minutes.
That's right.
So the thing I think farriers do very well compared to a lot of the blacksmiths that I've worked with is they understand the horn and they understand the turning points of contact and hammer blow, of being able to bend or straighten a piece of steel with nothing more than a hammer and this fantastic thing. And so turning forks is a really easy way to contain the space that you're going to bend. Where we do it with tongue placement, and you'll get to see when these guys do the draft horseshoe, you'll be able to see where their tongue placement is on their shoe, where their shoe contact on the horn is, and where the hammer blows come, and what moves is between the two contact points. And so the turning fork, and I really like these angle iron because they're adjustable turning.
I like it too. I've never seen that.
So using that and using another turning fork, I guess it's called, now I can expect that the material is going to change between my two contact points, so I can isolate what bends.
Ready?
Sure. Yeah, perfect. Is that hot? Can I hold it?
I can make
Yeah,
it not
no,
hot.
that's good. So I'm just going to do it in here. You can see I've got a nice round radius here and it's straight here. So I'm going to protect one side of it and then the other side. while just trying to keep my radiuses nice. And to me, it's like looking at a horseshoe. I'm looking at the inside web of it and trying to create symmetry. Same thing, you can trace an arc and then flip it over and see where you're round or where you're straight. And you're going to keep going on this guy until you bring all 4 lobes together. And as I guess I'm trying to think about the center line here, and this one still needs to come in quite a bit. I should get it around like that. The nice thing about using turning forks is that you're looking down on top of the work and you can see everything happening, where I think when people get to the horn, they lose sight of it and they can't see around the horn. But it's really the same thing here. And we do this all the time as farriers. I'm going to find center here, knowing I'm using it as a bottom die. As long as I go the same way all the way around one side and flip it around, do the other thing, I would have the exact same radius and arc. So we can, you want me to keep going with this a little bit more, or fast forward? Fast forward?
No. We're demo.
I didn't want to get too lengthy. You guys are really going to enjoy watching the two-man stuff. So I have this one already brought around, and some of them are kitty wampus and one's a little bigger, but I don't get too carried away about worrying about all that until I weld this together. And being 3/8 square, I like it that I can weld on the flat up and down like this. If it was this style here, well then you're going to be maybe welded on the horn this way instead. Or what do you call those things that hang off the side, like a shelf? I don't know what it's called.
Pointy thing?
Yeah.
Horn.
What would that be called, Clay? When you have that deal that hangs off the side, that where you're
Like on the other end?
A chain squid, chain thing.
I'll think
One
of
on the
it.
bottom of that other envelope.
Yeah, what is that called? One of them.
Chain maker.
Huh?
One of them things.
Oh, okay.
Do it.
Give me that new thing about it.
What's something about a chain? I know.
I really don't know, so.
I know there's a word for it. I'll remember
I
it.
don't know, I never.
Google what that is. Well, we did too, but she don't know the word. Something from up north.
It's like a steak, more or less, right? Would that be the right thing to call it, a steak?
That'd be appropriate.
I'm going to call it a steak.
Chain maker steak. Let's take odds. All right, who's betting? What are we gonna do a pool? Come on.
There's a hard coat too.
All right, everybody put $1 in. Any of them. Let's see what we got. No, want takers?
See what Siri calls it. We're gonna find out, right?
Names for a doohickey a blacksmith uses to do that thing.
Is he Googling that?
Yeah, it's good.
I'm sure you know.
I'm a Google guy.
Dalton's our resident techie. Like y'all got a techie, we got Dalton.
How about a chain maker steak handle?
All right. Except for it's not a steak handle. Other than that one thing. So, Shannon, is it Shannon? What's your Saxon. Your Saxon's dad?
Yeah.
That's what he started out like. He was all nice and techie and stuff.
It only gets worse from here, buddy.
A couple of years, he's going to, boy, it's not looking good. Just saying. Wait till the hair and the tattoos
Think you're
start.
going downhill for a while, and some point you trip and you're just at the bottom of the hill.
Yeah, and then we just drag somebody will find you and just drag you along because they don't know how to Google
By the
stuff.
time I get good and correct, they'll find a new one, swoop him up, ruin him.
Sorry, Dad.
Never ending.
important that you get these cusps as close to the similar when you're initially opening them up, because you can never get back in there again. That's as far as you can get. And when you alter one, if I try and move this branch in, it pulls that branch out, and vice versa. So there is a lot of consistency that you're trying to achieve as you go. So, you got the next one ready? Let's fast forward.
Oh, you don't play it?
Yeah, no. They don't want to watch me do this 4 times.
Okay. Hope y'all got that.
I missed the start. How long a piece of?
It was 40 inches, just a random length. So my marks were at 5 inches, 15 inches, 25 inches, 35 inches, and then the end would be the 40th. So when it comes around, in order to figure out how much material you need to fill a specific space, like you're trying to make a quatrefoil for a window or something, you would take the length of that square and multiply it by 4.5 times in order to get the length of material you need to make. And I'm quite certain that that could adjust either way, depending on how you forge it and how round or how far your cusps come into the center. I haven't done it that way. I'll go home and try it and find out what I learned from that. But
Francis tried to figure out the ratio like pi for that. He sent me a couple of letters. One was 4, and I think another one was 4.5. But it depends on the curves of the individual coils there.
right. And how much you use. Like you can embellish those cusps. You could draw these into little points, or you could carve animal heads in them, or like there's a whole variety of things. To me, I think just a good, clean, forged, weld, little round or square button, I think there's a lot of beauty in that, and I think it shows a lot of skill, too, of how accurate they are to each other.
So I'll just give you these. Put the thing in it. I'll get it. I'll just bring it out and give it to you to keep it all.
So we're fast forwarded here to forge weld the last foil together. When I weld, I don't scarf very often. I usually just lay my same stock. Things I think about with welding is the closer the stock materials are to each other in size, the easier time you have welding them. And it's the way I learned to do it. Building the horseshoes was that I didn't scarf them. And lots of guys scarf their bar shoes. A bar shoe would be a horseshoe that has a bar across the back, and it's for certain uses in a horse's foot or pathology or the way they work or whatever it be. Thank you. So I'm just tap, couple taps, get it stuck. Wire brush again. More flux. For me, I lay the weld or the overlap so that when I come out now I'm actually going to start pushing the material, and I'm actually probably creating my scarf now as I weld it and bring that back down to the original dimension. Some people like to leave their welds exposed so that they show, look, I forge welded it. I'm one of the ones who I like to hide everything. I want people to question where is the weld and make them look for it or hide it. And that puzzle of how did they do that is what I find, and I think Travis does too. How did they do that? How did they do that? He's always trying to figure out how did they do that. And that's one thing I like about the magic of blacksmithing.
Well, we got here, wasn't it?
And that's how we got here. We were at a farriers convention in Texas last fall, and Hooter's standing out by his truck, and I go walking by. He says, "Jennifer, come here. I want to ask you, how do you do this impossible grill thing?" And we get talking about it, and I said, "I don't really know, but I think I know somebody who does know." And so called Travis up and said, hey, can we come to your shop and will you show us how to do that? So our projects are laying over there on the floor that we worked on. And I don't think I'm a very smart person, but I know a lot of really smart people. So I just need to know who I can call to find out what I don't know all the time. Thank you. So welding all 4 surfaces, going a little rise, straighten it up as they go.
You better get my toolbox there. You better check my toolbox. Man, that's the only way I can go back to Arkansas. I'm not no gangster with it. So much temptation. What Rahul said? You gotta do what you gotta do. Can't say nothing.
We're going to fast forward to the next step because you've seen me weld before. I might have got a little heavy forging on that, and I might have popped it. Travis, here's yours.
It's always the heat.
You can hang it on the wall.
Heat is the heater.
Is the heat, yeah, uneven heat.
Uneven heat.
I was good, and I just forged it too cold is what I did. So there's nothing wrong with making mistakes. I did that on purpose so you could see when you've gone too far.
Yeah, now you feel comfortable.
Don't hit it when it's cold.
And
I got it.
I did a cultural exchange to England some years ago, and I got to hang out with a farrier blacksmith guy there. And he asked me, he says, Jennifer, how do you know when you found the perfect twist? How do you know? You reckon? Like, oh man, I shouldn't have gone that last twist. You know, you've gone too far. You liked it, and you thought, a little more. Now it's wrecked. You've gone too far. So I just missed the perfect weld. I went too far.
Well, Francis took 2 or 3 heats to scarf. And 1 to weld. So both of you are using the same amount of heats.
Gotcha. Thank you. That was worth the drive.
What did you say?
We can fast forward.
What do you say? What was worth the
I
drive?
don't really need to watch movies.
Well, you're gonna have to go through this, Jennifer. Sorry. They're not gonna let you. They're not gonna let you fast forward this part.
Get it back together.
They ain't gonna let you go with that big mob out here. So, okay. That's how my well does. Let's see what happens.
All right, I'll fix it.
You can do it. You can do it.
So, and if I do, like if I was at home, maybe we're okay here in the pool. Oh, nice. I'm not killing it, right? Like, and keep turning it over because the anvil steals the heat out of your work, and I want it to stay hot. Okay, I'm going to call that my tack again, and I start over. So if I'm struggling, especially working in propane with my weld sticking, open it up and reverse the layers so that you've got the outside is now the inside of your weld. Seems to help me. Okay, so then you've got your quatrefoil. You can quit with that one.
Oh.
I'm going to move on, Hooter, unless you want to work on it. So now I want to put a ring around it. So I'm going to go ahead and monkey with it, get all my shapes all together. I'm going to get my cusps where they get all my cusps where they're lined up. I'm going to start measuring distances here, trying to create, I want it to be symmetrical. You can make quatrefoils or you can make trifoils or dual foils or whatever. You can make them with the same size foils, or you could make asymmetrical with one foil longer than the other foil. It's endless. So now I got to figure out how much material does it take for me to get around this. So I'll just kind of, in my head, I measured the distance here from one side to the other. I don't remember what this was. 10, I think, and a quarter. Yeah, I'm like 10 and an eighth that way. and I'm right at 10 that way. So close enough, I'm gonna hit it with a hammer. I don't get too worried about, you have the ability to stretch material or whatever. Get as close as you can, but don't get obsessed with it. I can change it some. So I'm gonna take that as my diameter. Half of that is the radius, and in order to figure out the circumference of a circle is 2 pi r, the radius. So half of 10 is 5 times 2 times pi gives me what, 31 something or other?
31.415.
Yeah, there you go. And so I cut my piece of material that I want to go around it. And then there's lots of different ways of bending a circle. You could run it through a wheel roller, hit it with the hammer. This way I think is pretty cool. I just wanted to show how this, I took my black Sharpie and marked 1-inch increments on there. And then if I come to my turning cans, forks, whatever, and I continually just move it the same increment and make the same motion, I become a machine, just like the wheel roller.
You don't even have to heat it up.
Not this.
Man.
And so I'm really using the lack of heat or the cold material to my advantage instead of as a disadvantage. Just keeping my steel consistent. Flip over, because if I keep going, then I get out here. You know, when you're wanting to do something that's circle, tuck in your ends first.
Boy, you're the wet guy.
And I could check against my pocket foil and see what my arc is as I'm coming in close. I always think it's easier to tighten something up than it is to open it up. So if I have to go back and do it a second time, I'm not bothered. But
Anybody got any questions?
That's what I wanted to do with that ring yesterday. Grab it with my hands. And
Yeah. So you don't have to allow for the
Cold
stretching of the
bending
metal.
is more even than hot bending because it's all the same temperature.
right.
So would you say bending it cold like that keeps it more true to the size than if you got it hot bent? Like as far as like shrink and
I
stretch?
think that goes back to what Travis was saying, that the center line doesn't change, but your inside's still going to compress and your outside's still going to stretch. It has to, right? So I'm not bad. I mean, it's not perfectly wrong, but it's not bad. I'm happy with that, and I'm going to make it better. And I'm going to do it right on the horn. Yeah.
And that's the only thing out there for them.
That's me. The horn.
Oh, yeah, you're
Yeah, you're the one.
That's what you
I'm
don't
the
call it a
one.
bicker. The English people.
No, beak. So the same thing is just with the quatrefoil. I don't really care about this being perfect. I want it to be close, but I'm going to destroy some of it when I forge weld it. So I've got it overlapped a wee bit, and I'll get back to Hooter.
Well,
And, oh yeah, you guys want to watch me weld, or I can, no, I want to weld that, because then I want to show how you can use the horn. Everyone, oh, you got to have a cone mandrel. This is a cone. It's only, you know, just one section of it. But if you just work all the radiuses of here, if I took a piece of, like say, bale wire, and I wrapped it all the way around that horn, all real nice and tight, and then I cut it so that I just had this top surface, I'd have the same arc graduating bigger and bigger and bigger. And then if I go diagonally, in all the different diagonals, I'd find all the rest of those other arcs that keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So as long as my circle is small enough that I don't have interference with things underneath it, I can use this to true up any circle. And so for the far side of the anvil, if we had a line right down the top of the anvil right there, the far side is the turning side, and this side is the straightening side. So whenever my hammer blows are that side of the arc, or the top of the arc, it'll tighten it up, and when they're on this side, it'll open it up. Does that make sense?
Yeah, while you're talking about the horn, what's the difference from a farrier standpoint in this horn? What makes one better than the other?
It's just job-specific tools, right? So when we're shoeing horses, we have radiuses. Most of the time, you have feet that are a little straighter here, a little straighter there, or whatever the shapes of the horse's feet vary. But we like a good round horn, and we like a wide face for flattening. But a lot of anvils, like this one's a little flat for me. And so we're using the horn as a bottom guide, and we want the material to conform to that radius.
The belly on it doesn't have any plate.
No, we don't use that. We're only using this section right here. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you grab it. I thought we could grab it. You normally grab it? Main thing is, we're doing it is the right way. Everybody else is wrong. Horseshoers are right.
So, okay, so some of the differences between farriers and blacksmiths that I've experienced, we stand with the horn pointed to the left, and we use the horn a lot. And so we want to be able to have that maneuver there. I got with a blacksmith at home and asked, why are you guys standing on the wrong side of the anvil? And his answer to me was that they could leave something chucked up in the hardy hole and still swing the hammer without interference. Where if we have something in the hardy hole, we're always swinging, most people right-handed, in the area where there's something in the hardy hole. That's the only real excuse I've gotten. You got something to add, Clay? No? Okay. So primarily as farriers, we're using 5/16 or 3/8 or half-inch material to build horseshoes out of, sometimes quarter. But when we come, sure. I'm not gonna hit that very much. I'm just gonna get tacked. It wants to slide and roll off of there, so it's tacked. I'll just get another weld real quick. So for me, I want my hammer to make contact with the material I'm using the most when my arm is at full swing. So for me, I want my anvil way down here. And I get around the blacksmiths, they're like, why is your anvil so low? Well, that's why. I'm not sure why you guys use them higher. Because you're taller?
It's just right. It's just right.
It's just right?
When Hooter and I use it, it's right.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
These guys are far better
We're just taller.
machines than me.
Taller.
Yeah, far better.
Far better for us.
Just taller.
There's gonna be some simple.
You ready?
I guess so. Yep.
discussing, several hundred degrees difference, I think, in well cold or real hot, they have to be the same, so doing it, just, every now and then just turn the air off for a second. So, I'll take long, just remember, the heat will just be the same in the middle there.
Okay, one more, and then we'll do an overall heat on the entire ring. Yep.
We'll try it.
Or at least half of the time.
I'll give her an old college try.
Oh, yeah, I know about it.
I got a question.
Yes.
Will the well flow without the flux?
You can weld without flux if you get your material in the proper spot of fire. So you'll have a fire has an oxidizing, a neutralizing, and a carburizing space within the fire. And if you get in the neutral spot, you can weld without flux. So the flux is just protecting it from the scale building up on it, because then you're just welding scale to scale instead of steel to steel. Whoop, perfect.
There you go.
Just like the mouse was in
He
there.
was right there.
Yeah, I let that gel and it was all the same heat, burning right the hell up. Just like.
Yeah, it'll break over here now where it's weak. But so one other thing that we do as farriers is like our tongs are set up extremely specific for the material that we're holding on to. And so these are 3/8. The only thing they're supposed to hold is 3/8. And so I can grab a hold of this anywhere and I'm solid. Now I come over here to where my weld is, I can instantly feel that it's thicker there, just in where my reins are. And then I can come over here where it's all chewed up and burnt, and it might be harder to hold there. So this is like a built-in gap gauge right there in your hand.
Yeah, it's burned up already. I know it.
Yeah, they got one over.
So by working it around in the same location, at the same radius, in the same 2 contact points, I can create a circle. And I could go at this a wee bit more, but that's not too bad right there. It needs a little bit more, and then I would be able to go around my quatrefoil. And I like it when it's my outside ring is just a wee bit smaller than I ideally measured for, because I like it when I can create just a spring fit. Fast forward, Booter, fast forward, yeah, that's the... So then I can just grab this and kind of stretch it, pry it, pull it, whatever.
Shazam! That just happened.
No clinch is needed.
No clinch.
So there, now I've got the 2 pieces, and now I want to cover up the weld so nobody knows how I did it. And so there's different ways of doing that. I chose collaring today just because it sort of requires less equipment, and I think collars are cool. So the collars I built out of angle iron. So I just took a piece of 1/4 inch leg and flattened it down, And I like the fact that you did almost no work to it, but it looks like you've really spent a lot of time doing something. In order to determine how long each collar needs to be, you measure the perimeter of that. So I got 3/8 and 3/8 and 3/8 and 3/8 and 3/8 and 3/8. That perimeter is the length of the collar plus 2.5 times the thickness of the material you're using. And there's a lot of things that can change about that measurement as well. These happen to be 2.5 inches long. And whether you're going to build a little scarf on each end and overlap them, or whether you want your collars to butt up right to each other, will be one of the variables of how long the material that you cut. So then find the center of the material, and I usually just lay it right on my piece. Pencil line, pencil line. Okay, now I'm going to come over to my vise on my pencil line, smash it over. And then in order to get the second bend, because how do you get it in there? You just need a little cheater block, which I have this one, and so it needs to be longer than the leg, so that when I come to the vise, I can go to my line again. And there's other ways of doing this. This is a way that works well for me and my patients, or lack of. So now I've got little U-shaped pieces, and one at a time I would just go ahead and, you can do it cold or hot, either way. I did this cold at home, so I'll still cold. And I've got something that looks like a big donut stuck in the heart of the Oh, here. Piece of junk is all it is. But you need something to be able to back up against so that I can hammer on this. Oh, the other thing too is when you go to your collar, I'll use a wee small set hammer and just make sure that my material is seated down in there equally and as tight as I can get it. And in order to back up the round, I got to have something that will go up against that. And then I'm just going to fold this in. And then turn it around, go the other way, which I can do in a step. Here. I'll get it pretty close and try and eyeball it. Am I going to come out all right? Because if I'm too long, now's the time to go ahead and get a file or something and remove a little bit of material. And if it's too short, well then just stretch your material. Pull it more, put some heat to it, it'll pull around the corner. Forge the dimension thinner. And then just proceed out right on around until you've got your entire piece collared. And then if you don't like these, cover them up with something or forge them into, change them. So you do like them.
Put the collar on the ring, since the ring is so tight, on the perimeter.
Do I need to?
Yeah,
No,
it doesn't, see, this is already tight. Is this a needed piece?
to me it is. Because I could not take the part. When I do the wrap, the important part about wrapping is sometimes you have to create a convenience bender so that you can get passing through depending on how long your wraps are. But the important part is if you're going to add heat to this and do it, your heat is behind where you want the bend to actually occur so the material stretches and pulls tight as it goes around the corner.
How about if it's forged?
You could. Yeah, absolutely. You could weld these.
Without the collar.
Absolutely.
Just have a perfect.
The other thing is when you have a round and a square and different weight, or it'll tighten up. We got just two flat pieces.
Yeah, hey.
It'll be hard to get.
We're on the payroll.
It'll be important at that point.
No, is that going to
They
be a
didn't know
shed
that
or
until we showed up.
Eventually, I hope I got enough I can make a gate. I got a few more demos to do, but I'm getting there. Are there any questions about that?
Yeah, what's the formula you use to figure out the length of material you need to make
The quatrefoil?
make this right here?
2.5 times the thickness of the material of the collar plus the perimeter of what you're wrapping.
Right, perimeter was 4, right?
Yep. Well, it depends on whatever you're wrapping. And sometimes, like this is easy because it's 3/4 or 3/8 and 3/8 and 3/8 and 3/8 and 3/8 and 3/8. But if I had different size materials and it was getting to be too much mass for my melon, then I just have a leather boot string in the shop, and I'll just wrap my leather boot string around whatever it is and then straighten it out. And there's my measurement. I cheat and use boot string a lot. Good? All right, well then you guys are really in for a special treat. You guys ready? I would have been a mess without Hooter.
I said if you would have had one, it wouldn't
So,
have been.
the next part of this demonstration is going to be building a two draft horseshoes, and Gene Leisure and Tim Hoover have been competitive draft horseshoe build. They both are competitive. All of us are competitors. You and Bob, we all compete at building horseshoes. We go to events and test our skills against our peers, and we push and drive and share and network with each other all the time. These guys are fantastic. Category 6, that's a competitive horseshoeing team that they get together. Your teammates are from all around the country. They'll get together and practice, and then they'll go to these events where they are competing against other teams that have done the same thing. These guys have competed together in national conferences. You guys won what year?
Well, yeah.
4. Okay, well, they were close to it. 4th. If those other 3 teams.
I have won it 3 times.
Oh, you won it with who?
Mark, his brother.
Okay, his brother Mark. They've won it.
He didn't have lacquer. Make it.
So they are, not only when they get together to practice, they're practicing striking with each other, systems of building the shoes. Our competitions are judged on the quality of the work performed, but it has to be within a certain amount of time. So for this particular draft horse class, the teams are required to make 4 shoes, 2 fronts and 2 hinds, in 75 minutes. And they're built out a 1/2 by 1 1/4 fuller. You get a little blueprint of what you have to build, and the closest guy to the blueprint wins. And so, yeah, it's almost turns into a dance where they've practiced so much together that they don't even speak to each other. Okay, well, they don't know. They don't know you guys haven't practiced for a whole year yet.
They just met each other in the parking lot.
This is really cool. And the thing that I wanted to sort of show you guys is the striker is not just dumb strength. They should know as much about and they have to know what they're doing. One guy builds the 2 front shoes, and then they switch, and the other guy builds the 2 hind shoes in our competition. So they are very familiar with where a nail hole is going to be, where a heel is going to be, a shape of a shoe or whatnot. So as far as that goes, you guys are cutting steel and you're ready. Do you want to talk about feet or no? Do you want me to? The anatomy of the reason we make horseshoes the way we make them is that, how many people have horses here? Anyone?
I have horses.
Okay.
Big horse.
You got a piece of soap stone? No?
Jennifer, here.
Okay, so this one was very good on that. Huh? You got a black card? Don't matter. So the way a horse's leg is built, you have the cannon bone, the main bone that comes down, and then you have a series of a short pastern bone, long pastern bone, a short pastern bone, and then you have this coffin bone that's in, and this is really bad anatomy, by the way, but I just want to show that this coffin bone is within the horse's hoof capsule here. This is the horse's hoof, and then our shoe's going to go here. And so that whatever shape that coffin bone is the shape that we're trying to achieve with our horseshoe. And the bony attachment inside the hoof capsule is primarily in the front half of the foot, and the back half of the foot has soft tissues and cartilage and things that move more so than the front half. So we try and keep our nail placement towards the front half of the hoof capsule where there's less movement of the hoof and the structures than in the back half where there's a lot of movement. So every time the horse's foot steps down and lands, the heels will expand and contract as part of the whole concussion absorbing system that the horse is designed. And we want to stay out of that function. Our job is to preserve and maintain the horse's hoof capsule in balance with the rest of the animal. And it's a necessary evil, driving nails into a horse's foot and attaching steel to it. But the consequences of that are less than maybe an animal unshod, wearing its foot away. Now, the 3 reasons we shoe horses is to enhance the job ability of them, allow them to do their job better. So these shoes will have heel caulks on the end of them, designed for a draft horse who's going to be working someplace where he needs extra traction. And then the second reason is to protect the hoof when the hoof is wearing away faster than it's growing, because the horse's foot grows constantly, just like hair does. And so our job is to maintain the ideal balance within that hoof and the length of it. And if it is wearing away faster than it's growing, we'll use shoes to protect it, or if they're riding on abrasive surfaces, we want to protect it. And then the third reason is when we're trying to do something maybe a little bit more therapeutic of maintaining, achieving balance when balance can't be achieved without the application of something on it. Support, a crooked-legged animal might need some more help or something, a platform to stand down underneath it. And those variables and situations change. There's just an unlimited amount of things that you factor into what kind of shoe you're going to build and what kind of animal you're going to put it on and why and when you change it. Okay, so that's your anatomy lesson.
Well, and also horses have front feet, have hind feet, and every horse has its individual shape, but fronts tend to be rounder and hinds tend to be pointier. You know, the hind is the driving end, pointy toe gives it traction and grab in the ground. And so
That hurts more than it is.
yeah. So anyway, so there's generally speaking a difference in size of the feet too, and a round circle is going to take more material than a non-round circle. So this is going to be a front shoe, hind shoe. Generally speaking, every horse is probably going to be ½ inch to an inch more steel on the front than a hind shoe. But I'm going to make one hind shoe and Winter's going to make one front shoe. And like Jennifer was talking about, it's not just a turned piece of steel nailed on a horse's foot. It's very scientific for the horse. It is also art. So, you know, we have a very specific plan in mind as far as building a shoe for a horse. And also I know, like, I guess nobody really raised their hand of having a horse, so, you know, maybe y'all could care less about a horseshoe specifically. So hopefully, like, as far as using a striker, hopefully you can get a lot out of that, because it's extremely helpful. Like, we were making those rings yesterday and we did them together, 2 at a time. One of us make our ring, the other strike, swap out, and it's super helpful. And the job of the striker is to be a second set of eyes, say, hey, that's not right, that's not in the right position. And they should also be able to, you know, read what you're doing next, be ready for it. You know, he's heating up my shoe, I'm heating up his shoe. And know, if you're striking in a piece of steel that's super hot, obviously you're not going to come with all you've got. Once it gets colder, you hit it harder. You know, if you watch Mark when he was striking for Jennifer on that leaf, it was softer when it was hot and got a little more. It was very subtle, but it was there. So the depth of that crease or fuller that she did was the same. That's the striker's job, to know, follow that heat, know the tool, know what it's doing. And then body position, like move your feet. You know, if you're using the horn, be here, you're here. Or Jennifer was doing the angle, you're here. But I like to think of, if I've got a short chain or rope attached to my side, to my elbow, it can only go this far. When we start doing this is where people get hurt and start to hurt from forging. And I don't have very much control or power from here. But if I'm in this frame, I've got power because it's coming from my shoulder, my bicep, all through the arm. And you're less likely to hurt because, you know, your body's designed more to be in that frame. So if I need to do something over here, I'm over here. But I try to stay in this frame. So you have to move your feet. You know, and like Jennifer said it, hammer hand, the dumb hand, the tong hand makes it. It's the acrobat. It's got to get in position for the hammer to strike correctly. You know, so.
So like this is a contest deal, so for the contest they send us the specs and stuff on it, so we know exactly, so they have, say they have 50 teams, and they compare everybody's exactly on top of each other to see how you go. But if we were doing this on a live horse, we would go over and evaluate the foot and come up with these marks and numbers. They're not just random deals. And,
well, another part of the, like horses' feet are asymmetrical, just like yours. You have a right and left. Horses have right and left. You don't just make two symmetrical fronts and nail them on. They're not symmetrical. So when we mark these shoes, we're going to be slightly off center to give us extra length to go around to the outside. Nearly every horse is slightly shorter inside of the foot as outside, you know, based on the center of the foot. So there's the anatomy of the center of the foot, the frog. And that frog line, that gives you a center of the toe. You know, so we're building that around that anatomy for right and left. And that's you know, most people use cake shoes today, and pretty much all cake shoes are symmetrical. A good horseshoer makes that symmetrical shoe asymmetrical to fit the asymmetrical foot to be correct for that horse. And the horseshoers cannot do that or don't do that, it's really not correct horseshoeing. You're not supporting what is there. But
the main thing y'all gonna do is we're gonna beat the fire out here and holler and have a big time. So if you wanna, don't sit there and be quiet. Just gotta be quiet. Thing. Just, if you have a question, just scream it out. Remember over there. I'm gonna try not to burn this up.
It's like a rock and roll concert. The key word is singing. Granddad did it.
so another, like,
when you're shoeing, do you make all your shoes or do you use peg shoes?
in my career, and so I've done real well at competing, and I've made thousands and thousands of shoes, but I shoe horses to make money. So I did not use that many handmade shoes on horses.
That's what I want.
Like any pathology shoes, yes, I made those because I wanted them to be exactly what I, I wanted them to be.
But you can adjust the peg shoe to.
But if I have the skill to make them, now I have the skill to take a kid shoe and make it what it needs to be. So I think it's very valuable for a horseshoer to know how to do this. So when you go to bend the shoe or bend any material, if I'm turning the arc, say I'm hitting here and turning the arc here, the hammer is straightening or the hammer is bending. Wherever I hit, it's bending. Wherever I have contact point is straightening because of inertia. If I'm trying to wrap something around the horn, wherever I hit with the hammer is going to straighten the material because of inertia. The hammer going down, whiplash, it's straightening, the horn is bending. So if you're making an arc on the horn and you see a straight spot, that's where you need to put your contact on the horn. If you have if it's too much bend, that's where you're going to hit. So if you put where you need to bend on the horn contact and hit where it's too bent, now two things are happening at the same time. If you just run around and then look at it not right and then run around but not actually paying attention to where you're hitting, how hard you're hitting, you're still going to end up with the same asymmetrical shape because you haven't addressed what's happening as you're going around the horn.
The first thing we're going to do is we're going to bend the toe part of it, so the very point. And so doing that, it wants to stretch. And then we got to allow for our crease. So the first thing we're going to do is upset the center of it to allow for the bend.
Prepared for the stretch.
Prepare for the stretch. So as you're working blacksmithing, sometimes if you know a piece of material is going to stretch, you're going to bend it a certain way, then you need to upset it first. And then normally when you bend it, it gets thicker on the center and the inside web and thinner on the outside. So we'll end up seating that out and stuff. Also.
So it's a good point. So on a horseshoe, you want the opposite of that. It gets thin on the outside, thick on the inside when you bend it. You don't want sole pressure, so we thin that out. It's actually more beneficial to have the inner web of the shoe thinner than the outside, so you have no pressure on that sole where you know have sensitive tissue and thin.
So I'm gonna heat this up, and I'm gonna go to the water bucket first thing, and I'm gonna quench it to where I don't want it to bump up, and then I'm just gonna leave the center hot.
So Travis has come back there throughout the day and see us working back there, and he's like, "This is not a race, guys." But like I've competed so much that I'm always like trying to, keeping everything in motion. And really, the next day went better because I was like, "All right, let's chill out, have a good time. Let's like do this deal."
Y'all see that metal coming in there? So these, normally when we do this class, I have to build 2 of these, he has to build 2 of them. So at this point, at the bumping, I would need to mark that and make sure it's exactly right, or make sure what it is. So the next one I come out, then I'll bump it the same. You don't want to bump the second one more, then your shoe will be shorter.
You bumped it on one side?
Sir?
One side you bumped it?
I bumped it in the center.
Yeah, in the center.
It's like a snake eater.
You have the bolts sitting on one side, Doug, that's going to bend it, stretch, and then.
Yeah. You're bumping it and allowing
I'm gonna interpret that.
I got it.
So, I mean, just like with me doing the pliers, the hammer does more work than the handle does. So a lot of times I'll flip it around one direction or the other so that the material stays equal. They're looking for an equal bump, not necessarily thicker on one side than the other. But in different shoes, yes, you would. Maybe try and create a wedge and more material on one side than the other.
I can see it now.
So I specifically mark this shoe to be a left hind, and the other one would be marked to be a right hind. And so for me not to get confused in which way I bend it, I just put a slight little arc to it. I do have a mark here, but now when I come out of the fire, I already know which way I'm going just because I have the start to the bend.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Would any farrier ever use Yuri Hoppy's short handle?
Not one I met.
Yeah.
Yes, he got a stall jack.
No farrier in the world.
How long was Uri Hoppy's hatchet? Why didn't Tom Clark use a hatchet to split firewood?
Why penalize yourself by cutting off or using a part of the handle?
Right.
So now I'm gonna start my radius. I'm gonna start bending it in. You get what he did? Yep.
He's on our side.
Yeah, all good. I like it. I like it when you're on my team.
So if you pay attention, the Hooters tongs are a couple inches from the end of the steel there where it's holding it. And he also has a couple inches where the steel is on the handle. So the material is going to bend between those two contact points. He's using his smart hand, just lifting and bending the material, just like when I did my S's on my pedals, my smart hand was bending the material. His right hand is just a dumb hand that's just holding the material in the same place.
I'm right here. Don't talk about my hand.
Bends the material.
My hand's not going.
Sorry. Sorry.
All right, I'm gonna run the inside on this side.
So it's swelled up. It's thicker on the inside web than it is on the outside web. So now we're just going to bring that back and try to maintain the stock dimensions, keep it consistent. And as Gene was talking about sole pressure, when we put a horseshoe on a horse's foot, the only place we want contact between the steel and the animal is on the outer hoof wall. So there's a certain specific space where the hook capsule is attached to the bone, and that's called the white line or lamina, and that's where the nails are inserted into the horseshoe and into the horse's foot so that we don't cause any damage and get into sensitive structures of the animal. So right now they're marking out where those nail holes are going to go, and they'll come back in the next week and really color that shoe and make a space where the nails will sit down into a groove.
Got our toes bumped and turned.
You guys can
Now we'll come back. Start on the heels.
Yeah.
Let's do the heels next. These are going to be what they call an agricultural heel. It's for going in the dirt. And, it's my opinion that the heel part of the horseshoe is for stopping.
That's what I wanted to send home with you guys. So I think between the quatrefoil and even the shoe building, you can see what's going to change. If you're the only one who learned something and that's what you learned, I did what I intended. Teach them.
I got a friend that's a farrier over in Sonata, Mississippi. I asked him if he makes his own or just he said he could go ahead and get it built and then redesign those.
So where you put your heat is your friend. Like, and steel wants to bend where it's the hottest. So if I need to bend in a specific spot, that's where I would like it to be the hottest. So, I had that heat a little off center. So I just gonna move my heat rather than fight that bend the whole way through it. I'm just gonna get the heat where I want it, and then that's gonna happen so much easier for me. I think I've helped a lot of beginners, and one of the biggest mistakes is trying to keep doing something too long or just doing it before it's hot.
So how long have you been doing it?
I've been a farrier for 32 years. Bob? How many? 39 years.
27.
27.
Well, I started when I was 16, so it's 4 years.
4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I think 4 or 5.
Mark?
I'm trying to do 23.
23. Dalton, he's only 24 years old, so
Been doing it all night.
he's their baby.
So I'm constantly moving where I hit with my hammer and moving and that keeps me from getting nasty little marks in any one given spot.
just a second ago, I was doing it, and now I've turned the striker. So I have to try to anticipate what it is he's gonna do.
So notice the difference in the toe on this. How he had a nice round arc to it. This is a much tighter, pointier.
Watch while they were marking where the nail holes will go down the branch of the shoe. You can tell Hooter's staying perpendicular or on straight across parallel with Gene's tool all the while. He doesn't get off crooked one way or another. He's also supposed to be an extra set of eyes on the other side. So if Gene's got his tool in the wrong spot, he's too deep into the branch or too shallow, Hooter doesn't have to swing the sledgehammer. He can just wait, tell him, move your punch this way, that way, whatever. So he's not just thumb strength, he's extra set of eyes. And
But he has to move his hammer position, where he strikes, how he strikes. So I'm setting that corner here. Notice how he got up over the top of it and struck the tool and didn't like hit the side of it.
yeah, he's striking here, driving that point down into the material.
Right.
So there's nothing more versatile than a friend with a sledgehammer. Because I tried to replace a man with a power hammer, and I bought hammers and got a treadle hammer and everything. But they all have limitations to them. Where a friend with a sledgehammer, there's no limit.
Go in a minute
So now he's going to start the agricultural heel that'll be on the end of the branch. So they're shearing a section of the material down. When the branch comes around and fits on the horse's foot, they want it to be in the proper location at the back of the foot. But it doesn't create a trap or dirt and rocks, things that get stuck into the horse's foot, and give them a good solid heel to work on.
Now you're going up to that point. Like you're trying to board the corner. Don't hit the corner. Now I'm lifting that, bending that outside there. Going right to that point. Clean it up.
He's doing two things. He's
Trying to
accentuating
establish
that
that point. That's what covers the inside of the heel.
So the striker should always have the next tool ready, hand it to the forger, and hand it to them ready to use. Give them the handle and let them know they got it in their hand.
That's good. So here's where we're at now. And then the next heat. So normally at this time, if we were competing, and then we'd have it in the fire, we do this in a gas board line. This side would have been almost done. It'd be bent and nail holes, but kind of limited on what we got going. So pretty much this is slow. Enjoying y'all's company though. Hope y'all enjoying ours.
So energy only goes in a straight line, and people like wish a lot in blacksmithing or horseshoe making and stuff. They wish the steel would be where they want it, but they keep heating. Everybody wants to hit in that comfortable position here, but maybe you need to be here. You know, energy only goes in a straight line. You have to push the material where that straight line's going to go to. Same with striking a tool. Wherever my contact point is, I need to be a straight line through to contact. If I'm off, now you're going to get ricochet or inefficient tool use.
And the next thing you know, the tool is coming off of the stick. You know, the striker's not fitting appropriately.
Hello.
Big dream.
So now he's going out to try to establish that point with the flat part of his hand. Hammer, flat part of his hammer. Get that bend in there. Kinda like a while ago, Jennifer, when she was trying to put that V in, she bent in her little jig there. She said, you gotta get that now because you can't get to it later. This little bend right at the heel, if you don't do that now, it's extremely hard to get later. Good, good.
When they're normally in a competition, somebody builds the 2 front shoes and somebody builds the 2 hind shoes. Doesn't matter which one goes first, but they would stay in position. The fire tender would do everything at the fire and would basically just be handing the hot piece to stick to the anvil and then ready with the sledgehammer or the wire brush to prepare for it to be hit or hit it. And then after the first pair is done, and they go on the floor, the second pair can go into the fire, and they have 75 minutes in this particular class to do the set of shoes.
That's just
Because
the number. Most of them are.
next year it'll be 7. It takes and that competition is constantly pushing him. Like next year, it'll be 70 in the fire. Usually happens. You get somebody who does it, improves it. They can do it, everyone's got it. The next thing you know, the competition, the bar keeps getting higher, keeps getting closer, and the still keeps getting raising all the while. So when Gene is striking, there's those things. He's not just dumbly,
So I try to follow that tool. As he changes the pitcher angle, I have to follow that pitcher angle with my striking hammer. And you can feel it, easily feel it. When you miss a strike, like you can feel the tool's hitting air.
Yeah.
Or it'll, ricochet off.
And he's changing how hard he hits it depending on what's being done. And to know how hard to hit it, you have to have that experience. You know what's going on in the shoe building process.
And he's watching the heat too. He's just not creasing it when it's really hot, because then it just blows out everywhere.
And then, so like, when they're punching this, if that shoe's bent or it's not flat, it won't punch right. So it's my job to like make sure that with my left hand, being a smart hand, to make sure that that's flat where when it hits it, it's effective.
Yeah, he should be able to feel that. So wherever the tool's working, that should be contact on the anvil. Even if the material's bent, you need to move it and get the part where the tool's working in contact with the anvil, and you won't be losing efficiency in your tool usage.
What kind of steel is your punch?
Oh, that's S7.
Yes,
S7, yeah. Commonly, it's either S7 or H13. And there's argument back and forth between us which is better, but I started making tools out of S7. It's what I know how to do. I'm not saying it's better or not, but it's what I know how to do.
There must be a reason why your hammer handles are small.
I know that one. When I don't hit with this, I throw this hammer, just like you throw a ball. Like if I was going to pick up something and throw it, I just throw it. That's what I do. I throw it down and I catch it with this part of my hand, sort of. So good. And it's got to be small enough to do that. You throw it and catch it, and it don't hurt to have that tail on there. It'd be long enough so you don't throw it out of your hand. You don't have to grab it. You don't hold the hammer. You don't choke down on it like that. It's not good.
And the other thing too is in a competition, you might be going fast, and want to get back on the handle to be able to get more power. And then sometimes you want to choke up when you're just doing light stuff like you're doing now.
If you get to really working, that blood flows in your hand and gets your hand swelled up. So if you can already start with a big fat hammer, your hand swells up, it's like putting a glove on.
What Gene just did there, going around the horn, he was first creating some shape to his branch, but the second time, he was forging the dimension of the steel so that the inside web is still straight, but the outside web, he's tipped it. Full dimension on the bottom, but narrower on the top, and the material moves up. And what they're doing, excuse me, is preparing for that angle tool to go in there and create the beam and move that material back out. So when they're done, they still have two parallel edges with the B in the center. And so the steel will grow. All of that material that used to be in the center of the bar becomes linked in the branch. If they didn't hem it initially, they would just throw it out, and then they chase them back and forth, never getting nice crisp lines.
So, when I did go around this horn, and I was squared here, staying square. So I want the inside edge square with the outside edge vertical, you know. So I'm actually pinching the crease side narrower than the foot side because the crease is going to blow out and displace material. So I'm compensating for that around the horn. Also, the anvil is always doing something. It might not be as much as your hammer, but it's always doing something. So as I change on the horn angles and pitch, I need to change my twist to keep the inside from having straighter spots and more pitch spots. So as I came over here to turn, I had to tip my shoe to match the horn, keep it flat on the inside edge. There's a lot going on at the same time, but the anvil is always doing something every time you hit.
So this side here is in my way to hit that. So I'm just going to bend mine out that way a little bit. Go back to my little point. Start the knee. Well, I found the flaw in your bubbles in the water there, Travis. Stuff slips in your hand, don't it? That's right.
Y'all fellas need shower in a bottle?
Yeah.
So, almost always, when I have a more beginning striker, anytime you tell them to hit it harder, they hit it faster. You're like, no, that hard doesn't mean fast. Like, you always need to be in control of your hammer, and as a striker, you shouldn't be faster than what I guess to be considered the master is the one doing the work. You shouldn't be going faster than what he's going. You know, so, but you need to pace with him, so he's setting the pace. I move my creaser faster, he can go faster. If I go slower.
I'll give you one for you. I'll come up to do something on the black.
So that's his job to figure that out. Normally I'd go at the same pace, but here just we'll test him a little.
Ooh.
Oh.
Easy, cowboy.
So, using my tong hand, it's the smart hand. You know, the action of using this fuller is putting a cup in my material. So I'm following that with my tool, so the tool is always in contact. But the cleaner you want your finish, the more overlapping you will do. So see how short I go here in the finish pass? Whether you're hammering on the flat or the edge or running a tool, overlapping gets you that smooth, clean finish. Again, it's very important with this punch for me to find the anvil. Then you can hear how solid it is. Just for fun, let's do this. Ow, that hurt.
How much fun was that?
Yeah. No, that was not fun.
No, not fun.
One thing Gene said yesterday I thought was good is he said it's better to get yelled at for hitting too light than get yelled at for destroying a piece of wood. Creep up to the right impact.
I mean, either way, you're going to get yelled at, but... But you can see the huge difference between contact with the anvil and no contact. And that really did hurt my hand.
Yeah, hurt me a little bit too, but I don't need no dry action. Travis can tell you all about that. Ready?
Oh, Jennifer will tell you about Ben action.
Yeah.
Is it important that your shoe is solid on the anvil? The anvil being solid on the stump and the stump being solid to the ground are all things that work to your advantage. And when we go and compete, we use a steel anvil stand that's full of sand, and a lot of times it's heavier. Do you make them, don't you?
I have some,
The stump is heavier than the anvil is, and as long as it's all locked together.
It's amazing how much harder it hits than a stump.
I'm pretty sure mine's got like 300 pounds of concrete.
Concrete?
Yeah. I don't got time to wait on that sand to settle. I'm here to do stuff.
Dalton's got stuff to do. Yeah. He's young. He thinks everything he's got to have today. What's that? That was not good for fun.
When things bounce and move, it cheats what you were given it. It doesn't make a solid impact.
Generally, the harder you hit, the slower you want to be, more in control. Make sure you're going to be direct. So I'm setting my tool, getting it locked in, and then giving it a hit.
So during the competition, how long to get all 4 shoes done?
This particular class would be a 75-minute class.
And that's based primarily on, so you takes, like you normally get 3 minutes per a heat. So each time you did a turn, you get 3 minutes. And then it's got to heat up. So mostly we make these shoes in 6 heats. It's a customary. Just bend the inside or outside overall. No, just on that frame.
Underneath that frame.
Or if you would, hey, do the outside first, would you, Mark?
Yeah.
Yeah, we got to turn the wheel up. Yeah, that's right.
So, like I was saying earlier, the hammer straight and horn bends.
Yeah, okay, turn the heel.
If I hit where I put that arc in, it's all going to go away. So, when I go to get this bend here, I want to be in that corner. If I was to try and get the quarter bend in by hitting that bend, it would be gone by the time I had that bend. And once the shoe's bent, I can't put that arc back in it. That's why we do that first. But I have to be up in here or I will lose that arc.
So y'all any questions?
Where's the horses going on?
Well,
That looks like a Clydesdale.
That's what I was trying to say. It's bigger
That's
than
actually a
a-
small draft shoe. As far as
Yeah,
the
this
draft
is
shoe
great.
goes, that's small.
yeah, normally a lot of them are bigger. Yeah.
Yeah, we did a horse in a contest 2 years ago, 22 inches. Like, and then we did one with 20 inches of half, an inch and a half. So like, by the end of it, you're taking this hand to,
Inch and a half thick.
no,
No,
half
wide.
inch thick, inch and a half wide.
Oh, so the reference point, the one I'm building, the bigger one is 17 inches. So 22 inches is a lot more.
Does it
Kind of
depend
big
on
horse.
the
That's a big,
size
that's
of the
a,
horse on the
that's a
size
big
of the
horse.
shoe?
His withers are different.
Does it, the shoe depend on the thickness of the shoe for the horse that's going on?
This
So you
is-
can tell what you're gonna
No,
put it
I'm
on.
up. I'm up.
Does the
Thank you, sir.
thickness got anything to do with the size of the horse or the size of the shoe?
The question was, does the size of the material matter based on the animal you're putting it on? And absolutely. So a draft horse has big structures, big anatomy. The hoof wall is big and thick. So being an inch and a quarter
No, that was both ways.
material, their mandibles are going to be around halfway in the center of that. Which means that the hoof wall would
We
be
can make another bag.
quarters of an inch thick. Smaller horse, you'd have your material would be smaller
I'm gonna
as
have to
far
take
as
a
the
light.
web, and even the thickness. And it goes to job description as well. If you had an animal that was supposed to slide, run real fast and then slide, you'd use something that was real wide, like skis, and no traction, no pullering, nothing. You'd want it to be as smooth as possible to increase that job description. The more weight you put on a horse, like Bob would shoe the gaited animals, and he would use a lot of weighted shoes and weight in specific spots of the shoe in order to create more animation in the animal's movements. So we have an ability to manipulate how they move to some degree. Yeah, yeah, the donkeys are shot, and the mules are shot as well. For the same reason, enhance the job ability when we're exceeds growth, the cheek balance, the balance can't be
So this is what Jennifer was talking about earlier. Going around this corner. It's overlapping. To keep the inside at an angle that keeps it more upright. As it comes here, I have to tip the wheel.
You guys know why the horseshoe is hung over top of the door? It's actually a warning sign to the devil. So it's one day, all this noise is going on, the fire's going, and the smoke's going and everything, and they're attacking it to the devil to the blacksmith shop. And they're inside the blacksmith shop, beautiful white horse, getting these beautiful shoes, all shiny, nailed on, the clippy floppy goes, and the devil says, I gotta give you some of those. And he asked the blacksmith, can you fix me up like you did that horse? And he recognized it was the devil, didn't want to create any sort of confrontation or arguments, he went ahead, he got the shoes red hot, he burned them. We do hot stick for horse's foot, but there's a limitation to that. He burned them right to the devil's feet. He drove the nails right into the sensitive structures of the devil's foot, and off the devil goes out of the shop. He pays the blacksmith. Blacksmith throws the money into the fire. The devil goes out the shop, and the farther he goes, the sorer he gets, and the lamer he is. He finally takes off those shoes and swears he will never go back to that place where he gets those wretched shoes. So the blacksmith hangs the shoe over top of the door as a warning. This is where those shoes come from. Don't come on. Or something.
Something like that.
Sounded pretty good.
Yeah, and as why do they turn them up? It's sometimes down. Some people believe you got to catch the luck inside the heels of the shoe. Some people believe you got to turn the heels down so the luck comes onto the forge.
Down because they create their own luck.
Ah.
The rest of the people have to catch
Oh,
their luck.
So this is a flat surface. Peter's holding, it's just a flat surface. Gene's striking it to create consistent stock. Iron out, planish the shoe as you will. Just planishing a fuller line where the nails will go.
Why do I keep dipping my tools in coffee?
He keeps dipping his tools in the coffee. What that is forge shears is a product we use in farriers. It's oil and tar and leather. What else is in it? I don't know. What? Peat.
Peat for peat balls.
And it's creating a lubricant for the tool so it doesn't get stuck in the hole. And it's also cooling the tool to some degree too, so that they don't end up mushing everything and destroying the tool through the process of punching.
That's horseshoe or happy dog. Oh.
What?
Horseshoe or happy dog. Oh.
Happy dog.
Don't marshal part of it.
Other side.
Yeah, just have the
Jennifer.
Not too hot.
Not a bad way to keep your coffee warm either.
Yeah.
Boys, appreciate it. Thank your brother sabotaging you on the heat.
So when these shoes are done, they nail them onto the horse, and the nails go into that white line, that connective tissue between the sensitive and insensitive structures, and then the nails pop out the outside of the hook wall, and then we fold those over. We trim them down real nice and short, and fold them over, and create what we call a ridge, more or less like a ridge, and set that into the whole wall. So it's nice and smooth, no damage to the animal or the humans handling the animal. And then the horse's foot goes at a particular rate, but they need to be maintained approximately every 6 weeks. So these guys nail them on. 6 weeks later, they come back to the same horse, pop the shoes off without destroying the shoe in any way, trim the horse's foot, and then reapply the shoe until the shoe wears out. The keg shoes or the pre-manufactured shoes tend to wear out faster than when we hand make shoes, just based on the whole metallurgy of packing molecules and manipulating the steel versus what's done in the factories. But we like to reset our shoes as long as we possibly can because we're more efficient and faster that way, and it equates to more money.
And we're trying to save the planet. We don't want to use up any more material than we have to.
Y'all going green?
So just a little something on horn usage.
Trap.
With your tongs. Like a lot of beginners you see, they're always down here with their tongs already. So if I'm going to go around an arc, I'm going to start with my tongs up. And now I can go, and I can go all the way around. I'm comfortable, and I try not to ever go past here. And if I do, I'm gonna come up.
Because all the slag will jump off of it and down onto your hand.
So all these scars, 90% of them came in the first 10 years I forged, and I've been doing it 27. Like, burn the heck out of me all the time, because you're down here and the slag's falling right on it, especially if you got a fan over there.
And propane.
So, yeah. But it's also very functional. I don't have to do so much tongue repositioning. I'm already there and I can follow down and follow the arc around.
Oh, never mind. Yeah, trying to burn my shoe up. Oh, I'm sorry. Ready to walk on the cover. What caused that color to be like this, Jennifer?
The answer is, well, I got two different colors. It's a product one of our friends introduced me to. It's called alcohol ink. And are you familiar with it? That's what it is. And I'm like, alcohol ink, what is that? It's simple. Just go on Amazon. You buy 24 colors. Comes in a little box like that. The colors are no bigger than an eyedropper would be. Really fluid, almost watery. The more clean the slag you move, the shinier your material is when you put it on, the easier the color will pop out. You use it incredibly sparingly. You can dilute it with water. It goes a super long way. And when you first put it on, it looks like it evaporates and disappears and you got nothing. And that's where you go, where'd it go? And you add more, and you add more, and you add more. And then the next thing you know, my favorite spray is just the satin rattle cans. And as soon as I sprayed it with the satin rattle can, all this color appeared. And I was like, holy wow, I overdid it. So then I started practicing how to keep it to a minimum. Just make subtle colors. It's like $16, $24 or something for these little boxes. Oh, super cheap and fantastic colors. And then there's been times where I didn't like what I had as a result, so I went back and added more colors to it, or applied with a toothpick into the color line or something. Just like if you were waterproof, add layers of colors.
So I want that to come up right. So that's like the wishing material to be where it is. But I have to pull it. That's the English right there. That's English on it. Putting English on it.
Yes.
Is it like a heel of a shoe?
Yes.
So that doesn't,
Traction. So that horse will land just slightly heel first. And those heels are all the way around. Caught.
No, you do not. Just before they get. So those are like right. And so then you want a big slide. So they're made out of like quarter by inch and a half or inch. This would be like for a horse to pull a plow and walk on brick, cobblestone, or something like that. If you put something like this on a range horse and slid it one time, I'm pretty sure his hind leg would get all that. Yeah, they could be gone. Like grass on it. Did you?
That's why I started.
always said that.
Stop, you never.
There it is.
Whoa.
Stop.
Yeah. Did you see where Craig had his roads he had some more roads.
Or there was yeah, it's always
No, sorry.
So by punching these holes is like punching any other hole. You're gonna get it to the bottom, you push it over, you see the shiny spot. I know, you know that to the depth I mean. So just like punching a round hole, whatever. This is a cutting tool, not really a forging tool. I need to cut that plug out. If there's too much material, it's just gonna kind of shred it out, blow it out, and it's gonna be a big nasty kind of round jagged hole. But if it cuts it out, it should be a crisp square hole. And I know if my tools are set up right and I punch the depth, then it's just a one-hit deal. And get you some crisp rectangle shapes.
You make your own nails for them too.
No. That would probably be the most difficult thing to make for horseshoeing.
Well, we were talking about that on the way up here, you know, about the, you know, how the world's, well, seem to be having some issues right now. We think we'd probably be all right if we keep shoeing horses, because we can build shoes. But nobody in the truck can build nails real good. Like, horseshoe nails are not just, oh boy. They're pretty, because it's got to go in that living critter. Nobody brought a nail. Wait. See, like when I don't want him to hit, I don't just say, whoa, whoa, whoa. He hit, I'm done, I move that. And lay it down. Even if so he's focused, he's got laser focus. I know it don't look like it, but he's on point.
So a horseshoe nail looks exactly like the end of the punch that they're using. And the idea is that when the nail fits into the hole they create with this punch, you've got solid contact on all four sides of the nail. And then the nail head is just got a slight offset to it, and the opposite end, the pointy end, will have a bit of a bevel to it, and the bevel helps direct the nail through the hook path the way you intend it to, and get it to pop out where you desire it. The bigger the horseshoe, the bigger the nail. The smaller the horseshoe, the smaller the nail. So we'll have different punches for variety of different styles of nails as well. This is a particular type, what we call the E-head nail, but there's city nails and there's cannonball nails, like there's a variety of nails, and you would have tools set up for each style of nail that you use. Just putting two center dots right there in the center of the toe. He's going to put a toe clip on the front of that shoe, which if you can imagine, if your foot was in a sandal and it had a thong that went between your toes, so your foot doesn't slide off the front of your sandal, it's the same thing. He's going to put a toe clip on the front of there, and every time the horse's foot lands, there's a bit of a slide savings to it. That toe clip in the front will help keep the shoe from shifting once it's through.
You got the majority of the stuff other than the clip. You got almost all the elements in there. It's a little wide. Now I had to do a little more refinement and shaping. I can do Should be able to do a lot of that in this next season.
I didn't want that with a special amount too.
Oh, only just got one. Oh, I did not ready for it. I didn't know
We had one more. Jump in on us. Yeah, 6 3/4.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a work group right there.
So this part Hooters doing is called the clip, and it gets pulled to the foot side, it gets burned into the foot. And this is extra strength, especially on a drought horse, heavy pulling horse. So it takes the shearing off the nail. If we're starting a load and they dig their toes in and push, but we're stopping a load. They break them. They shear out the nails, build into the clip. That's the material that's
And we're going to use the peen of the hammer to draw a source out. And different peens do different sources. So this is a big old shoe on a big nice bubble. So we got this big old ball peen hammer.
So big horse, bigger clip. Small horse, be small speed.
Here to hit that, or you can use mine. Bring mine, my shoe up here and find it. It's got some shades.
Honestly, no, but that doesn't mean it's right. It's maybe each of your fingernails you give your well, and as
So
the
we'll
horse
crease
gets older, the food's going to change too. So an older horse might not produce as much growth as a younger horse. A few things change that. Diet, for one, is huge. Activity level. There's no muscle for lower horses. So all the blood that circulates in and out of their foot is by moving around the limb, moving. So the more they exercise, the faster their feet will grow and not necessarily. It's just a full-time career. I've made an entire life shoeing horses. So we're all still kind of working on it.
So notice that as a striker, as a striker, how I got lower and lower as we turned the tool. It's my job. I have to follow that tool. It's like no, I don't have to do it. Job.
Normally it is.
So one of the things I mentioned about burning the shoe on the devil's foot, that we do hot fit. We take the hot shoe, black heat, and we'll burn it to the hook tassel before we're finished. And what we're doing is we're actually burning the horse's foot.
You got it? Yeah, we're using dinner. I forgot we got her.
And that will get bigger, drawn out. Just like the flowers, they'll draw that out and move that material. One part.
Ladder.
Right. Yeah, every time he steps down, the heels will land first, all that traction, that grab the horse has to slide in their stride already. And you're standing up against that will help keep the shoe from shifting and shifting right on. Hopefully not. More shoes can be caused by a lot of reasons. Yes, because what will happen is will continue to grow, and as it grows out of balance, the animal will start using their limbs improperly. There'll be stresses on the flexor tendons. So that's why our job is to as soon as you get your check, getting your truck moving, your job is already starting to fall apart. So put it through.
Does all horses have to have a shoe?
No, we shoot for three reasons mainly. Protection, when where it exceeds growth, if they're working on abrasive surfaces, or maybe it's an older horse that grow at the same rate as being more off, then you're going to do it. You do it to enhance the job description. A race horse would have a real light shoe that will not interfere with them running fast. It'll have traction applied to it. Different shoes for different jobs.
Or like that kid running through the swing on a player.
Probably not. All you're doing is making out probably not. Unless you have some sort of conformational problem that, if he stands like this, and he doesn't have some sort of shoe to help balance him, it'll just keep compounding and it'll affect the entire animal. So,
How much did your hammer weigh?
Sir?
How much did your hammer weigh?
This is 2 1/4. Yeah.
His is a little lighter.
That was just, I bet that one of mine, it's about 2 1/4 is what it's just
a little
material
different shape.
longer, stretched out longer. And that's something, there's a difference in blacksmithing, and it kind of becomes an argument sometimes, is the weight of a hammer. Blacksmiths tend to use heavier. And I think farriers mostly at the truck all day long on lighter shoes swing a lighter hammer.
I don't use this hammer.
They would need to be trimmed at the rate that they're growing. So, like an older horse might be able to run on some sort of vehicle that's heavy. For a young horse, active training and working hard, they're going to grow faster, an older horse.
Still a little wide.
So they say the average. I try to follow my customers. I go to their house, their farm, or wherever they are at, every 5 minutes. And then the weather. We don't go as much. How much it's going to grow. And they're all standing around.
Yeah, it's done more than the field tree.
That's perfect, baby.
Perfect nail. So I don't know if Jennifer mentioned it, but like they have pitch to the foot, and there's more pitch at the front, and it gets more upright as it comes around. So as we punch these nails, and because of the angle of the foot, the wall thickness is thicker at the toe than at the heel. So we're trying to follow that line of depth and pitch. And that's the beauty of a handmade. If you do that right, those nails go up the foot and come out what they need to just boom, boom, boom. Where cake shoes, because they're mass produced, are punched straight. And just make a well-made hand shoe nails up so much nicer than a cake shoe or a pattern made.
Well, I usually when I turn them over, I get mixed up.
Because it's made like a good Smith horseshoe work is making that shoe for that horse.
You ready, cowboy?
Yes.
You all right? Burn the oven. Oh, yes, sir.
That's right.
So normally, this would be one he like we do that, boom, I'd pull the clip, done.
And as a general rule, you shouldn't hit a hammer with another hammer. No preset forever. But if you hit this hammer, you hit that hammer good, you're okay. You start this stuff, now you have trouble. I mean, it's maybe not really okay, but it's kind of okay. I mean, I do got one little piece of a creaser in my leg here. I'll show you all the x-rays. It's on my phone. Hurt real bad. But we was using actual top tool, bottom tool, that little creaser tool, and I was striking, and we were really going, and I was coming around, I was full sand, baby, and I missed just a little bit. Pow, shot me right in the leg. Felt like a 22. Yeah, well, it felt like a 30-06, but I had to say 22 because I can't be a sissy.
Just needed a tube of tract and
But never missed a lick. We kept right on going. I got done, had a big old bloody spot all over me. But show must go on. Huh? Yeah. Oh, I forgot about it. I about give up on my computer. Who'd have thunk it? All these years. All these years. We got skill. I know it. We have all the gold buttons and shit. No.
So on a typical day, you do all four, I want to say.
We got
On a typical day to trim 4 feet, manipulate 4 catch shoes, and nail them on a horse will be, there's things that will change it, but approximately an hour to an hour.
Well, the journeyman test, I mean, if you make
Behavior of the owner, behavior of the weather, like, there's a lot of things that'll change that. We typically figure an hour to an hour and a half to shoe a horse all the way around.
Oh, I'm not on it.
If all you're gonna do is just go in and
Is it something about the clip?
maintain a trim little process, we do those in approximately 15
Name a
minutes.
nail.
the journeyman test, that's 4 shoes in 2 hours.
So the question is, how much do you make per horse? And there's as many answers to that as well. I make far less than somebody in a better economic area. I live clear up in the snow belt of right on the Canadian border, low economic area. And I charge $50 to $60 to trim a horse, but I'm as high as I've ever been. And maybe these guys were getting that years ago. They might be getting more now in different areas that they're living at. I think the price is based more on the discipline of the animal. Bob would do these gaited show horses, and there's a lot of work that gets done into that type of a shoeing. So those prices for him to shoe one horse is a different price than it is for me. I'm just doing maybe flat shoes for trail riders, and I could only, in my area, charge around 100 to 100.
I got it. I'm out.
For a
I'm
horse.
out. I'm out.
Where he might be getting $300 to do 4 shoes on him. Different discipline, different environment. Oh, was that the low end?
I didn't hear what you said.
Bob gets $500 to shoe a horse. 400? 400. Do you guys care? What do you get for 4 shoes? 4 flat shoes, everyday work, whatever.
Right around 200.
Right around 200?
I'm about 125.
More like me. Geez, where do you live? Oh yeah, small town. Small town.
I live in Arkansas. I live in Arkansas.
So, and they're really like, I'm probably the least skilled out of all these people, but it doesn't have anything, the skill level doesn't have as much to do with the price as the environment and the discipline you're working in. So, I know guys who make way more money than me, but don't have near as many skills, but they're in a different area.
They're not having fun like we are.
Right. I'm rich with
Rolling
other
paper.
stuff.
All right, so pulling this clip, that's a fullering operation. So a round hammer, I can change the width of my fuller. If I had a square hammer, I'm stuck with that width. So how much I tip my hammer changes the width of my fuller. And that's how I can help myself get the pyramid shape. So I'm going to start out flatter here. And edge to edge on the anvil, and I'm grabbing that material. Getting started in the clip. And I tip up a little bit to start fullering narrower. Start giving me that nice tip. Then I go flat again to get rid of the marks. And so then we have this.
What was your smart hand doing?
So the smart hand, I was changing the angle here. So if I'm not careful and I'm real flat here and I'm away, in those first couple of blows, I will lose half of my material. So I'm trying to isolate that material to be in the clip, not the shoe. So I pulled it out there for a reason. And that's very useful in blacksmithing, anything. Like, so I'm out, I isolate the material edge to edge. And then as I go out, get that tip, and then I go flat and clean up the fullery marks. You know, it's all done in a subtle, subtle move. So watch Hooters pull this tool here. So I'm trying to get up there and clean those edges around the clip, get it flat. So a good striker is invaluable, and it makes your job so much easier.
Especially if you don't burn up your ring.
Hooter also won a very prestigious trophy called the Striker of the Year Award.
The what?
Striker of the Year. Going to these competitions, we gathered points for being a striker, and he gathered the most points in a year, which he won a Horseshoeing rig, truck bed. So we would take the bed off of our pickup trucks, and there's manufacturers who make the rig and capture the frame. You open up all the doors and you have basically a mobile workshop. And Hooter won them. So probably a $1,000 price.
Jim, I understand y'all have some fun competitions in some of your things. Tell us about some of those.
We think this is fun.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we do throw in some other things that you constantly have to keep changing the challenge, keep climbing the skill level and attracting the crowd that comes.
I think, like the competition, that's how we've all met, is that competition. We're great friends.
Well, not us two, we're brothers. I didn't have a choice.
A lot of times, just the blacksmith group, we'll have a ring on, you have to draw it out, draw a piece out.
We'll do stuff like that. Yeah. We'll blow anvils up, just like everybody else.
We've done that.
If you put $1 out of your pocket into a hat, then it's on. It don't matter. It don't have to be a lot of money.
I don't care what we're doing. I mean,
You can ask Travis about our competition last night.
Yeah.
yeah. If it only costs me $1 to try, I'm gonna try hard.
Yeah.
You give $1 to a pair of gloves, Bird.
Yeah, I got some trying.
But
I had not all farriers are interested in blacksmithing, really. A lot of them don't think they have any
I would say a
artistic.
small percentage are.
Yeah.
Don't.
And the way I got
Don't say it.
interested in blacksmithing was
Never mind.
we have a testing system through our farrier association, and it's a voluntary testing procedure where you demonstrate both your knowledge and your skill. And so it's with the American Farriers Association. There's different levels. There's like a certified level, a tradesman level, a journeyman level. And I was working on, we're all journeymen here. I was working on my journeyman level, and I was going horseshoe after horseshoe after horseshoe. And I was getting really burnt out, and I was mentally drained of this horseshoe stuff. But I thought, if I leave the shop, I'm going to get out of the hammer, I'll lose all my efficiency, I'm going to lose my endurance. And I had just recently seen in one of our earlier publications a stake turner, an article, a one-page article on how to build a stake turner. And I thought, well, I'm gonna do a stake turner.
Oh, stake turner.
So I thought, well, it's just a piece of square stock and a twist on the end and a long paper and a hook and a bang, and I'll do that.
We'll do that.
Oh, and then I can still be working on my fire skills and my forging skills. And when I finished that, I was like, well, I wonder if I split it in half so I can make quarters. And then it was, I wonder if I can attach the spatula. And that's where my addiction became that. What if I did this? What if I did that?
So when you made the stake turner, was it left hand or right hand?
It was a right-handed one. And I didn't know the difference until I gave a left-handed friend one, and he's like, how do you use it? And then I realized the issue. So I took the, I had built a couple of treasure chests before, and I struggled. I do a lot of self-teaching because I just live so far away from everybody. And when me and Bob went and took this class with Clay, I was so excited that I was going to get to learn some of the things I really struggled with. And each night, it was a week-long class, each night me and Bob and another friend of ours was there. We go back to our campground where we were, and we talk about what we did that day. And how we could, and I told these guys, I didn't tell Clay yet, so I'm going to a competition next year, and it's the most versatile blacksmith competition. It was in Circumference, New Mexico, hosted by one of our industry legends, and I said, I'm going to make that. It was supposed to be set in the era of rawhide, the show, so late 1800s, early 1900s, whatever. And so my project was the scenes around rawhide. So I've been watching all the series of rawhide, looking in the background for ideas and whatnot. And in one, I saw a man with a chest. And I thought, that's it. I'm going to make a chest. So I took Clay's class to try and figure out all the ways I could teach. And each night we go back to the camper and figure out, how can we simplify what we did today and make it easier and faster. And when I went to the competition, one of the things to make it easier was to make it bigger. So this was the size chest I used, and I just had hasps on it instead of the decorative flower. I didn't put feet on it, I didn't do any edging or anything like that. And what we did in more than 40 hours, because we go back to the shop even after supper with Clay and keep working at it. Me and my partner, as well as partner, built a very simple version of this in one day. And when we left the class, I told Clay, I said, I'm going to go do that in one day. I'm leaving in 3 days. He chuckled and laughed at me and he said, well, let me know how you do.
No, I just used my hand in it.
Got
My first
second
use.
place.
It's like a natural balance.
Just a little
Second
dab.
place. But I was beat by a world champion, so I guess first loser isn't too bad.
So, who would like to see Jennifer make a steak?
It's almost lunchtime.
Got us there.
What? You want to do a steak turner?
Well, yeah, who, do y'all want to see a steak turner make?
A little one.
They're hungry,
I don't want
dude.
them long ones, I want a small one.
Well, we got a big hammer.
Oh, okay, we'll do it, but let's draw it out with a striker.
Apparently, not so much on the hot. He handed me that hot horseshoe and tricked me, so you're free. But it did work a little bit. It wasn't real hot. So let's use the biggest power hammer ever and draw out the steak turner. We got 3/8 in it. A little more. Okay. Fine. You still ought to make it out of 5/8 and do a rough twist on the handle. Not if you do it fast.
Okay, all right, I'm fine with that.
Let's go, girlfriend.
Okay. Get a piece of steel.
5/8.
Where I
How
saw.
long you want it?
How long?
We're going 3
About
handles?
5-inch square or round?
Square probably gonna do rope with. There's a piece laying here somewhere.
I'm gonna do a little-
Right over there at the cutter.
5/8 square and all.
You can do whatever you want. It's your clinic.
I'll keep it to 4 puller.
Oh, you can do like more than that.
You got skills.
How long?
She's got
90?
Look, I think this is more than you think.
There's one perfect. That's perfect. Oh yeah, probably about.
We're gonna put this one on the handle.
Hey, down the right back.
I mean, you're only gonna draw this. We use it all week.
I broke this apart yesterday trying to find it and nothing.
I think I maybe pull up. How long you want it?
Yeah, I'm gonna make it. Wait a minute, come here. Let me see what you just did there. I've never seen
Oh, I got skills.
What the hell? I mean, hey.
9 inches.
How accurate is his ruler? Party trick.
You just gotta use a little cord.
This is not really doing good. What you gonna do?
I'm gonna use this bandsaw so it's not the charge.
Well, there's that other thing.
Yeah, all they scared. They scared. Oh, I don't know. This is just laying over.
Oh, my one.
I'll just use you guys.
We're just trying to figure out who. Here you go. Who's going to strike?
That's what we're building it out of?
She said she didn't want a big one. You got to stretch it.
Hey, I want a small one. My preference is
Railroad. You're gonna have to buy a bunch of them iron and a half teeth.
I will do that.
Hey, this is your first picture.
I
Oh,
don't
everybody
know
wants to
Oh,
anybody.
wait, let me take my safety glasses. How's my hair?
Whoa, wait a minute.
Hey, Bob, we need Bob in here. Can you
Come
come
on, Bob.
Come on, Bob.
Come on, Bob Smith.
Get over here, Bob.
Bobo.
Bob Smith.
Yeah, Smith. Here you go. Lay down right here like Burt
Hey,
Reynolds.
y'all hurry. Hey, hurry, little this fire's still on.
Squeeze in. There you go.
Cheers.
Booyah.
Yeah, we need.
Yeah, come on, Trevor.
Yeah.
You lay
We
down
need
like
to
Burt
grab
Reynolds.
all our rings, too.
Oh, yes, we'll do that second.
Yeah, they ain't.
You get up there with Jennifer.
Here you go.
She and Bob Smith will hang out here.
Wow, got worse. I mean, it was bad to start with, but it
Booyah.
Well, I just want to thank Travis for having us. 'Cause
Yeah,
I've had a great time.
Thank
We
you.
done camped out here for 3
I
days.
want to thank you guys for the horseshoe demo.
Open the door,
Y'all
y'all.
giving us something to do on this fine Saturday.
But now we're really gonna do some shit. Stuff.
Yeah,
Stuff.
stuff.
We're gonna flog it. We're gonna do some flogging. Have y'all ever done any flogging? Oh, need a tone.
So we not got, oh no.
Put one in there and keep them. Oh, I need to get tickets. Are they doing?
I mean, if you want to keep them in your shop, that's fine.
We did one.
What are y'all gonna do with the horseshoe?
See, they gotta know.
Makes a difference how much money we put in.
Yeah.
We'll make, well, John bought some rebar.
How much are the tickets?
Oh, are we doing that right now?
Yeah.
We cramming in the hat right now?
For every $5.
They got a list.
So
Is this what we're doing right now?
Gotta get some tongs.
Yeah, I thought we
gotta
gonna make
go.
the steak turners for the crab tent too. We got time to make it.
When are they doing the hat thing right now?
Oh, let's draw
want
this out on the big. Gonna get it done.
Jennifer's gonna make some kind of twisty on the handle, and we're gonna feed that some gun into the mix. Wop, wop, whoop, whoop. You don't care? Dalton, this is coiled up energy.
I know,
I'm raring to let it rip.
watched him for 2 days.
I was looking for one. We ain't quit yet.
We got a big one right here. I wish we just. I ran back with this one.
Oh, yeah. Y'all, everybody see it? You see it? Well, going in the hat and crap. Well, my club, I'm in a black club, Southwest Arkansas, right there in the corner, called the Fort Faith Ironman. We call it crap in the hat. You know, sometimes it's a little shiny, sometimes it's not. This aren't main.
Oh, it's Bud Rag?
Good.
Oh, yeah. Way down by Montgomery.
Yeah.
We're here to smash it, boy.
900 pounds. Oh, the tire. Oh, okay.
I have to make sure I got the link.
I should not be
I got one room available.
Full sin right there, cowboy.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody.
Anybody.
That's not gonna be proof. No. You can get carried away with this stuff, can't work on Monday. I'm not the one.
Are we going? We're hot.
Well, we're hot. We're hot.
We're hot. We're hot.
Clinician. She probably wants to put the handle on first.
Oh,
What's that? Twist?
maybe.
Well, this is.
Well, she's run them up.
She may have got some more stuff.
Oh, we're on the bike.
Oh, yeah.
God, that's a long time ago, but it's the 50th picture. You're 30 minutes.
How much longer you got? Well, he's not quite done. Good luck. What did they do to you?
Well, this time right here, they went in and rolled over to my spinal cord, spinal column. No, they closed up on the spinal cord, triple. So they put me in a wheelchair.
Really?
Yeah. They done that, 11th day of last month. It was weird, so I got out of the car, get in the wheelchair, go in the hospital, and before they let me leave the hospital, I was up walking around on the walk.
Yeah, when they did both my knees, they had me up that night.
Yeah.
They love to watch you suffer.
That's all right, everybody else was suffering, I had to hold them back down to the whole Can't unsee that.
Really? Well, I had to do a couple of things before they let me leave the hospital. Walk up the stairs,
You know what? They wanted to send me home. The insurance company said I could go home.
They kept me 2 days. The prostate surgery, they sent me home. They said the next day after the surgery, they said, well, you go home. They said, I think I'm going to stay here one more day. I stayed in the hotel one more day. They don't want you to stay in the insurance company. They don't want you to stay anymore. Get them home. I pay them any more money.
Chasing around with
Yeah.
If anyone else is interested in an anvil devil, I take $7 for them. Like one.
Yeah, I heard you. What are you getting for?
$7.
7
I know it's a lot, isn't it?
That's killing.
I don't even know if I can replace them for $7, but I bought them for $5 plus tax plus shipping. So I'm not making much.
What I'm saying, I was probably around to do this for 15.
Okay, they're $10 now. Did I give you one?
No, not yet.
Do you like one?
He made this, man.
We've got a little tool, and what happens is as the hook grows, the nails, whatever, like, well,